the world is often changed by people crazy enough to think that they can.
Mm.
And I think that that's a fundamental principle of what makes an entrepreneur is somebody who's like, you know what? There's all this stuff that's happening out here in the world, but nobody's doing it like this. And if it was done like this, wouldn't that change things? And so you go in and then you become disruptive and you change. And some ideas are more disruptive than others, right? Welcome back to another installment of the Perspective Podcast. My name is Devin. This is my co-host Mitch Harley, and today we have on Brian Esposito. And normally I like to have a little bit of a stinger here, and I struggled to try to pick one of the multitude of accomplishments that Brian has had in his life. So we're going to dive into that, and I'm going to let him share some more, or share a deeper dive into his past and experience and the things that he's done. And so just to kind of get the ball rolling here, Brian, out of all of the things that you've done, and I know it's a lot, like if somebody's watching this or listening to this and you didn't first look up the name to find out what it is that you've done, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But I'd like to kind of start with, what is for you the biggest or strangest challenge that you've faced in all of the, crazy things that you've done?
Oh, great question. Thank you for throwing that out there, Devin and Mitch. Thank you guys for having me on today. An ongoing challenge is my own way I'm made, my chemical makeup, and believing that everybody's inherently good. That's not really the case. And I don't like to judge people, but there are some people that, whether they're desperate times, call for desperate measures, or just pure evil, there's enough movies like The Exorcist to say that there is pure evil out there. That's been my biggest ongoing challenge because I love working with people. I enjoy what comes out of that. But thankfully, through many of the ass kickings that I've been through, and I also am adult enough to know that I've put myself in harm's way. I don't blame other people for that. So if something happens to me that puts, whether I get taken advantage of or stolen from or just, again, put in harm's way, I own that and I say, what did I do to make that happen? And I've also trained my brain to be thankful when people that aren't like me come in my path and something awful happens. I tend to look at it like, well, what is the benefit besides learning experience? And 100% of the time, which is pretty unique and interesting, is I've met some of my best friends and best business partners because we both were taken advantage of by somebody. So it's pretty interesting if you look at the psychology of that. There's been a bond, a trauma bond that we've created, and I tend to think I'm kind of a smart guy. I got street smarts, and if someone gets over on me, I thank them for teaching me a vulnerability that I have, and then I also get to meet somebody great that also got taken advantage of, and from there we have a laugh about it. We share a drink if we're in the same area together about it, and something wonderful is formed. So it takes a lot of training to get to that level of just a good, healthy mindset where you're not beating yourself up or you're continuing to be negative or harp on it. But that's my continued issue, is that I get to meet amazing people all the time because of what I do and how far my reach is. And when you're open like me, you invite good and bad into your life, and it's just getting more seasoned and more experienced to spot the bad and prevent anything from happening as you get older and go through more of life lessons.
You know what I love about that whole thing? The first thing is an enemy of my enemy is a friend of mine, which I think is very fascinating. Me and Mitch both have very similar experiences in that vein, and you're going to hear a lot of these little comic book quotes from me, just because I'm a bit of a nerd myself.
Okay.
That some people just want to watch the world burn. That's famous quote, Alfred from Batman, I think the Dark Knight series. But there's some truth to that, hey? Just in when you are out there in the world, there are people that don't play by the same rules as, say, somebody like you or I, who have a bit of a moral compass, I would like to maybe assert. But in facing those challenges, it's really difficult not to become jaded.
It's almost impossible. And we're human, right? We're not robots.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew during some of my darkest times, if I was, as you said, jaded, bitter, or angry, that's not going to help me overcome whatever challenge I'm going through. It's going to make it even harder. And I know early on in life, I've been invited into some amazing rooms of, people where it was a gift at a young age where I got to be in boardrooms or executive meetings, and I just soaked up all that knowledge. The reason for that is that people tend to like me. Simple as that. They want me around. They like my energy. They trust me. So if I was to go down that dark, take the dark path and be closed off and be angry, well, then my skill and my gift also gets turned off. So
Mm.
you got to be conscious of that. And yeah, I like to think, again, I like to think everybody's inherently good, and people have gone through a lot of awful things. And this goes back to the beginning of humankind. It's just been constant scares, wars, crusades, all kinds of persecutions. It's like it's crazy what humanity's been through. And people tend to also think I'm crazy when I say there's almost 8 billion people out there. It's kind of amazing that we're all getting along at the level that we're getting along, considering what we've come through. You don't see massive millions of people just being murdered like conquerors have done in our history. So it's kind of nice to see this amount of people playing well together.
In one lifetime too, Brian. I just had to add that in because look at it's only been what 70 years since the last significant war where millions and millions of lives were lost. And there's a massive amount of trust that goes into us just walking down the street every day.
Yeah, well said. So I look at that and I look at the mechanisms in place, things that I like to work on, and I think it should be every human being's basic right is free, clean, fresh water. So I love the work that I'm doing as far as for profit and all my companies, and how can we have an impact to help people, to give people opportunities, and to, for me, leave my mark on. It's not just money. Money comes and goes. It's, to me, it's not even a real thing. It's how do we treat one another? What do we need to better each other's lives? And, coming together as a community and working together and all that stuff is great. And it's kumbaya, but it's not reality. So what can I do with my little impact on the world to really have a big difference and really make people's lives better and help people and help humanity and protect what we've created. So yeah, I mean it's amazing where I started in the late '90s. I was selling nail polish and shampoo and lotions at the beauty company that I built, and now you fast forward to where I am today and the things that I've overcome, a couple of near-death experiences. I feel I'm here for a purpose, and getting to share my story with wonderful shows and people like you really helped me reflect on, my gosh, I've done a lot of cool shit in my career, and hopefully it actually means something and will result in something that can go on whether I'm here or not.
I think it's interesting your perspective because I think anyone who is a legit entrepreneur, anybody that has taken a chance on somebody has gotten burnt at some point. And whether that burning came from a malicious intent or, like you said, just desperate times, and people sometimes just make bad decisions. What I love about it is you view it like an investment. That's how I perceive it, and that's how I take it too. So, in my past, I've been burnt for, a $20,000 invoice that was never paid. Well, that burnt, but I've seen people invest $10, $15, $20,000 in a coaching program that didn't work either.
Yeah.
So who came out of that same, monetary investment with a better outcome? I think it was me, because now I know what not to look for, and now I can, pass that information on to other people. So I think it's a really good takeaway to view bad things as an investment rather than a loss, because we can either learn to be bitter or we can learn to be better. And either way, you're taking something away from that investment. So I love that you've taken the latter.
Yeah, so what you're saying is exactly like my career. The key to it is not to make that same mistake twice. So in your example, I'm sure you don't extend that amount of credit to anybody anymore. There's different mechanisms in place that help money keep coming in, or yeah, there's also other ways to value something in return. I don't know the details of that burn, and I'm sorry that you went through that. I'm surprised I have fingerprints left from all the burns that I've gotten in my career, but I would have worked with that person to find some value back. You may never have gotten the cash back, but there's something in there if you keep the relationship alive to get it back. Maybe it's an intro to somebody else. Maybe it's other way of creating value, because that's something that I'm also good at. There's always a solution. All right, you can't pay the invoice. I get it. Whether you intended on or not, that's up to you. When you leave this earth, you're going to have to answer for that. But if you did try to, if you really want to make good on it, what can we do together as a team to just make this right? So that's where I take the investment even a little bit further, because I always want to salvage everything I possibly can. I can't be in every room possible. So I like to always think I have an ally out in the world, that if my name comes up, and it is this very small world, it gets smaller every day, that if my name comes up, there's somebody there that says, hey, he's a good guy. He always tries to do the right thing. And that's my MO. I'm a man of my word. And unfortunately, other people's timing can contradict that, because other people have different time expectations. So I've had to work on how I communicate our plans and our execution, and things may come up that'll set us back, but I will always do what I say I'm going to do. It may take a little bit longer, but that's my integrity. That's my character. It's really, I really believe that's all that I have control over. And that's really all that I am, is my integrity, not what's in the bank, not if I'm wearing a fancy watch or nice shoes. It's my character. That's my value. That's my fingerprint. So, in your example, that's been my career, is okay, that happened. It hurt me. How can I fix it? How can I rectify it? How can I get some value back? And then more importantly, how can I prevent that from happening again in the future?
How do you get over taking something so personally? Because we can take the same example of, let's just use that number, a $20,000 invoice doesn't get paid. We can invest $20,000 into a marketing campaign that doesn't work, but yet we don't sit here and be like, oh, the universe is against me and I just can't catch a break. It's like, no, we're just like, oh, okay, that didn't work. We're going to try something else. Whereas the exact same monetary value, when it comes to a person, all of a sudden now we have a very different viewpoint of that. And I think in business, this is a big dilemma for people.
Yeah, it's much more personal, right? Because I think if you got granular with it, it's more of a knock against your smarts, right? That's why it goes from 0 to 100. It's because I'm believing in you, Mitch. If we were to work together, I'm believing in that. What you're saying is true. We're going to accomplish this, and I'm taking the bait. I'm betting on it, and I want to be right. The minute it goes south or it doesn't feel right, it's more of people not understanding the anger within you it's displaced anger onto you, rather than looking at it rationally and like, okay, what went wrong? Was it something that I was doing in the messaging that I provided to you for whatever we needed to accomplish? Because again, I feel like there's always two people or more coming together, and I feel like everybody wants it to work out, and there's always a potential issue or conflict, or that's marriages fall apart. There's just things dissolve, but there's ways to, again, create that value. But to what you're saying, I think it's more of a personal evolution of like your mindset and how you react to things, to just be angry because you're really mad at yourself for saying this is going to work and it didn't work out, rather than looking at why it didn't work out. And maybe it was all my fault why it didn't work out, because I didn't provide you what you needed to make it a successful campaign or a successful business partnership. So again, it's communication, it's understanding, it's patience. It's if you went into the deal together, so why not figure out how do you make it work within reason? Because again, my company motto forever is time is our most precious commodity. So you do need to know when to pull the cord on things and just separate. But you also need to see things through. You can't just be pissed and abandoned and say, that's it, I'm out, because one little problem comes up. I think that's one of the biggest issues with people right now is instant gratification. And nobody right now knows how to handle a problem. In this next generation of youth, it's just they're given everything. They expect immediate results and gratification. And there's no problem solving anymore. That's it. There's blocking people. It's going online and attacking people without even trying to work it through. It's just like this. It's a very bizarre and very sensitive time period that we're all living in, where problems don't really get addressed directly with each other. They get thrown out into the world, and then you start getting other people's ideas, and it gets even more messy, rather than just sitting down, two or more people, and resolving an issue. And and going forward. And in the US, it's even worse because anybody can sue anybody for no reason whatsoever. So then it even gets even more crazy. And then toxic poison mindsets result in wasted time, aggravation, and hurting a lot of people that could have really been avoided.
There's a a tremendous risk of everything becoming transactional. And I think that that's the hard thing for us all to examine on a deeper level. When we try to form new relationships with people, let's say, for example, like a sales thing, right? Well, I come to you and I say, hey, Brian, I can help your company do X, Y, Z. Is that something that you're looking to do? Well, at the beginning, I'm going to do this for you and you're going to get this out of it. And then you're going to compensate me in this way. And so there's a give and take. But then back to the idea that you can't be taken advantage of, because everything does come down to some level of you have responsibility over the decision that was made there. So if you decide that, yes, let's go into business, Devin, and then we work together and I help you achieve XYZ result, but it wasn't what you expected, well, now we have a deeper cause for examination of, well, what happened, what went wrong, where was your expectation versus where was my promise made to you? And now if that doesn't meet your requirements, I'm out the door. That personal relationship that we had has zero merit. You just find another one of me to replace me with. And so now this whole time, the idea of, like, as a salesperson, for example, trying to form a relationship with someone so that you can help them achieve a goal, only for them to find out that it didn't meet their expectation, whatever, and then they kick you out the door. Well, did I get taken advantage of there, or was I in a relationship that was transactional and just didn't recognize it? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Oh, absolutely. You were, in that example that I'm following you on, completely transactional, and you were like a chess piece, right, in a different person's game, where now I know the value that I was able to extort from you for X amount of dollars. And now, like you said, I'm going to replace you with somebody else. So then that's the transactional piece. There was no emotional connection. There was no empathy. There was no real true partnership being formed, because if there was, then it was, okay, that worked out. Hey, I broke even. I got a little gain. I had a little loss. What went right? What went wrong? How do we perfect it? How do we grow from here? And now let's do it again. And we know what not to do. That's very difficult to find in this business landscape, because people are so, again, they want immediate, unrealistic returns and gains and expectations. A lot of it is because of the cryptocurrency world, which I'm heavily involved in digital assets. And I believe that is the future of business and the future of wealth and preserving wealth. But because of the high emotional connection to these projects, there's no real value or utility. But if someone tweets about it that has some sort of a personal, huge audience, then all of a sudden it can fly high and you make a massive amount of wealth. Now, when I go to these events and meetings in different cryptocurrency cities around the world, like Miami does it phenomenal, I get infuriated. I get nauseous. It reminds me of the late 90s bubble with tech. People that have been gifted such tremendous wealth, just $400,000 nightclub parties, driving around in Lamborghinis. It's infuriating. You were given this gift of wealth that people can never obtain, most people around the world, or spend a lifetime trying to obtain. You were gifted it, right time, right place, you got lucky, and you're just blowing it away. Rather than saying that could have been a moment that could have changed your life and your generations of your family and your last name from now for hundreds of years, you're going to blow it away because you want to put a cool post up on TikTok and feel and brag. To me, that's just, it's infuriating from someone that has built, I think, exceptional wealth and careers and companies throughout my history. I lost it all during a car accident in 2016 where I had to rebuild from less than nothing. And now I'm at the model and moment I am in my life. So I've been through this trajectory where I've had nothing and I've had to rebuild. And I have a mindset where if you're chasing things or you're chasing materialistic, or if you're just surrounded by cash is king and cash is God, you're never going to be happy. You're going to be chasing things for the rest of your life, and you're a lost soul. So when I see that, I get really, again, I just get infuriated, and it's obscene. It's obscene behavior, and it goes, but this is the generation now that I know firsthand because I work with them. We build communities around them. Like, they're amazing, the loyalty. They'll sit on a computer for 24 hours a day in these Discords and Twitter rooms and just talk about great projects. And the passion and the energy is amazing. But then the understanding of financial responsibility and wealth preservation and understanding the real value of a dollar is not there. So there's such an unfortunate disconnect. And this is going to be what's going to be the next X amount of decades of our life is going to be fueled and driven and by the leaders that come out of this generation. So it freaks me out.
Well, I think there's a huge amount of people that know that lottery winners usually go broke. And to me, it's the same thing as when I just don't want to pick on entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs, they kind of go through that. So they appreciate when they get something because they know what it's like not to have it.
Yeah.
I think that same mentality is when, foreign workers come in, and I've had this discussion too. Like I loved having foreign workers work for me because they appreciated work. It wasn't about taking advantage of them. They know what it's like not to be able to feed their family. And I think in the Western world, not a lot of people have the desperation for work that other places in the world have. And so that crypto, they think money comes easy. They think that initial buy, that's always just going to be there. And because it came so easy to them. And so, they throw those ridiculous parties and they're part of that circle. But what they don't realize is that circle's a bubble and one night it'll pop. And there's a few people in there that have sustainable wealth and they think they're like that. And they're not. And they don't understand the assets and that finance is a science. And you have to build a foundation and a structure. And so when you're dumped on this, you dumped a house and you built it on sand, it just doesn't work. And I think that's what's really lacking. And the school system doesn't teach it and college doesn't teach it. So where is there a place to learn it? And I think that's kind of the fundamental breakdown of why you see this up and down generation and their emotions are attached to that.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the domino effect of that erratic behavior and emotion cause things like FTX to collapse. It's this lifestyle that people are trying to obtain and show off and brag about. And then that domino caused great banking institutions like Silvergate, Signature Bank, Silicon Valley Bank. The fact that Silicon Valley Bank was allowed to just do what it did and crumble, it is the innovation mecca of the United States. That is what fuels innovation for this country. We don't have the manufacturing glory we used to have in the 50s. We don't have the science and technology. We have innovation. What spurs innovation was that bank got behind great visionaries and leaders and companies and gave them the resources and support they need to make the United States an innovator. Now that's being, in my opinion, it's going to be the UAE based upon the money that they have. And the endless money that they have, and the smarts to say, hey, we want people to come here and innovate because we're going to give you freedom, we're going to give you resources, we're going to give you banking, we're going to support you. So now we lost that in addition to everything else that we used to have as a country. And to what you're saying, Mitch, is the groundswell of that behavior ends up hurting institutions, which we see. That's proof. We've seen that. And that's why there's no stability. That's why there's no sustainability. Something that flies high and there's a massive amount of wealth created, like we're talking about. That wealth and that asset stayed on the balance sheets in these banks or these institutions and didn't go to a Ferrari dealer or didn't go to a nightclub in Miami or didn't go to getting a first class or private aviation. It's flushed down the toilet. It's no longer on a balance sheet anywhere besides different companies that were able to take advantage of wealth that people are splurging on. So you have to really look at, like you said, finance is a science. It is, but if you look at where that asset sits and how it can be cherished and preserved and grown upon, if it's depleted, it's not possible. It disappears.
And you know what's crazy? And there's a lot of doom and gloom here. This is one of those situations where we're kind of at a catalyst in terms of just the way society, cultural, collectively as communities, we are separated but together. We're in another state of revolution where information now is readily available and it's made the traditional education system obsolete. Here's another one of those comic book quips. With great power comes great responsibility. Shout out Uncle Ben. I think that's really, really important for everybody to know, but to practice. And I'll use this as an example. I'm going to call this the Mr. Beast phenomenon. You come out as a young kid with this idea that you're going to make content and put it on YouTube. You don't have a plan, but you know that if you do that, people are going to watch. And if it starts like that at first, that's okay. And what he does is he creates this audience of people that watch him, and he figures out a formula. And now there are people, deconstructing that formula and calling it evil. And like, look, he changes the frame every 3 seconds to suck you in and make you watch it and And okay, that's fine. But who else is going to take their own time and money and go and cure 1,000 people of blindness? Who else is going to do that? I don't see anybody else doing that, especially don't see the people complaining about Mr. Beast doing that. Right? And so there is the problem, right? And there's a perception that money is inherently evil, right? We've all heard that saying, money is the root of all evil, but you needed money to pay the people to do the surgery to give those people back vision. And you think those people with vision are complaining that it was captured by Mr. Beast's camera crew? I don't think they're worried about that so much as they can see now.
and ignorance and sight is bliss, right? What depends what they want to see now, right? Depending on what's going on in the world.
Well, and then zoom out on that one too to the rest of industry. And I think that this is really like the big evil corporations. Yeah, heat and electricity is a little expensive right now, and I think that there's a bit of a political game and shareholders and et cetera. There's a lot of moving parts, and the reason why these prices keep going up, and where the upper middle class, lower middle class, and poverty level people are struggling to make ends meet here in all of this. But let's not forget that the people that built these things, this infrastructure, the power and the electricity and the heat that you get, the natural gas pipelines that are underground right now, the water that's going around, all this stuff was built by people who needed money to survive, right? You got to pay them so that they can buy their groceries and do all this other stuff. Or if they didn't do that, what would they be doing? They'd be tending to their own farm, making sure they had their own meat and potatoes, and not helping anybody do anything else. And so in that collaboration, they couldn't do this thing, so they had to pay somebody else for that thing. And so this thing now builds itself into what we know as society and a structure. And is it perfect? No. But it's been driven by the fact that people with money have an idea to solve problems for other people, and those other people need the money, and so they're willing to do the work.
Yeah,
and
create the problem. That's the other.
Create the
problem that needs to be solved, and it's the same Rothschild approach, which if you look back in history, amazing what that last name does.
Back to that whole, some people just want to watch the world burn. And I get that, right? They don't play by the same rules, but...
No, they create the rules, they break the rules, and they defend the rules that they broke. Where we're going, and you're seeing it now, it's going to be only a Chase Bank. And we're talking about the U.S. economy. It's only going to be a Chase Bank on every corner. It's only going to be one supermarket. It's only going to be one utility company. It's only going to be one water company. And that's where we're going. And then back to groceries, a few weeks ago, everybody was seeing these funny memes about the price of eggs. I remember there was a chicken walking around with a Chanel bag, and you can say that's funny. But if you get even more a little granular, there was a moment where a mother or father was in a grocery store and said, "Shit, I can't buy eggs this week." And that's unnecessary in our type of first world country, and it's inexcusable that's a decision that people have to make. It's just there's too much wealth here. Too much wealth here to allow people to have to be able to make that decision and be pushed out of society like that. How do you leave that store and feel good about yourself? How do you leave that store and feel like you're a success or that you have confidence? You leave that store and you feel awful about yourself, and that's the plan, right? So you don't go and better yourself. You don't go and try to make a difference. You don't try to get yourself and your family out of this. It's how do you do it? Obviously, people do it because they just grind and they don't stop. But it's got to be a hell of a lot harder. I wasn't here 50, 100 years ago. Wish I was, but it's got to be a hell of a lot harder now trying to crawl out of this mess than it was not even that long ago.
How have you? Because I mean, your business experience goes back. I mean, it predates a lot of the young kids that we're seeing come up now, and you've been through the up and down. You've had the the crash and burn and the coming back up. But how have you had to adjust, or what have you seen successful people adjust from the culture and environment and climate of late 90s, early 2000s, and now at such a rapid changing environment to basically to today?
For me, I've been through the late 90s crash, the 2008 crash, and now what we're experiencing now. And I'm not doom and gloom. I'm usually very positive and we got this type of mentality. But because I went through those, and like we talked about before, is learning from those experiences and preparing not to be in that situation again, I knew US was not going to allow a crypto or digital asset bank to exist. So I knew that Signature Bank and Silvergate Bank, there was only X amount of time, even though they were public companies, they were regulated and reporting. I knew that they didn't get the blessing to continue to move forward. Why? Because, again, go back to balance sheets. You have assets being taken out of traditional banks that run the country, traditional names, JPM, that are so institutional and so influential in our economy and tied into everything. When they're looking at their assets and they're seeing customers moving over to other banks that they don't have any control or ownership or leverage from, and taking cash and moving it into digital assets into another bank, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say that's not going to last very long. So knowing that and saying, okay, well, I need backups of the backups of the backups of banks and legal and accounting and regulatory. And my world is like an insurance policy where if that fails, we have this. If that fails, we have this. Because I've been through it. I don't trust what I'm being told by people, and that's okay. I don't believe that you're treated fairly in business or banking or government. That's okay. It's okay. That's the way it is. I was born into this situation. So all that I know. So what is Brian going to do? Brian's going to focus on what I can control, and I'm going to protect my little world as much as I can. And my key and most important thing to survival is being very cautious as to who I let into my little world. That's it. That's all I want to do. Just work with good people, have some sort of positive impact. The companies and models that I create, they're not unicorns, because unicorns don't exist because they die. If they ever existed at one point, they all died. So they don't exist. You can have a moment where a unicorn company gets a headline, gets a lot of praise, but look at every unicorn that went IPO. The market is not stupid. I always use Facebook as an example. You can look at Uber, you can look at all of them. Facebook IPO'd at $30. The reason I know it, because I was stupid enough to be on the IPO. It went down to 16, immediately cut in half, because the market understands that their business model at the time was not sustainable, was not worthy of that type of valuation, and it got corrected. Then you saw it get back to even, and now you see it flying because they fixed their business model, they fixed their profit. So me, being very Jack Welch, GE, Warren Buffett focus is, if you want to be in business, you got to have revenues. If you want to stay in business, you got to be profitable. I didn't make that up. That's very old school, timeless business philosophies. The problem is you got massively egotistical people that run companies that want to be very braggadocious. They want to show off. They want to be the best and biggest thing in the world. Therefore, they put their companies, their employees, and their stakeholders in harm's way. That's not how I'm wired. I don't want things. I don't need things. I don't wear a watch. Don't wear a watch. I don't need it. I don't need to be in a room and doing this. Oh, did you see my new Rolex I just got? I got already making money. It's already worth more money. When I hear that, I want to just throw up on people. And I'm sorry if you got a Rolex. Good for you. It's worth more money now than it was when we started this podcast. But in my mind is help people. What are you doing with your moment in this life? Yeah, okay. Get a nice watch. God bless you. It makes you feel good. Reward yourself. Do you need a closet of watches? One very famous guy, I don't want to say anything bad about people, but if you go back and look at his Twitter, he's a real estate guy worth a lot of money. Him and his wife, they're icons in real estate. A post a few weeks ago, I was like, this is ridiculous. He showed him on his private plane with a box of watches and what's next for my collection. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're a father. You have kids. This is the mindset that you're giving out to the world. You're worth all this money. You're on your private plane. You got a box of watches. It's probably $10 million worth of value there, and you want to know what's next, why don't you sell all them and go build a bunch of wells for people to have water? If you really want to feel good about yourself and feel like you're providing value, you're making Rolex more money. You're making the private jet company that manufactured your plane more money. You're making the gas company that's fueling your jet. Yeah, you're employing a captain. I like that. You're employing the maintenance people. I like that. But you just made me hate you. And I used to admire and respect you. But that one post, that one stupid post, because what, you're insecure? I hate you now. I want nothing to do with you. I will never say your name again. And I think you're lost.
I think who you're talking about, he also brags about passive income all the time.
All the time.
And what's ironic about that post is those watches do not make you passive income. And all his followers that support him and idolize him, they don't see that disconnect. They just think all this passive income allows you to have a lifestyle that I want to have. And that's where I think there's a big breakdown in social media. I think is very toxic when it comes to that. But I also think the message you're sending as far as build wells and help people, in order to get there, not even just financially, but as a mindset, you have to view people, whether that's employees or just neighbors, as assets, not liabilities. And I think where a lot of companies, especially corporate companies, whether they started that way or not, as soon as they start viewing people as liabilities, that's when they come back to what you said. They put them in harm's way because they don't care. But if you view people that you employ or people around you that you see and value as assets, that is a source of passive income because they will continually support you in whatever you do.
I agree.
And I think that's a huge breakdown with people in business and people in general. That massive wealth that comes in that we talked about earlier, that party, that 400,000, that's not viewing people as assets. That's liabilities because they're there short term. They're there for an initial, it's a transaction. You get the clout and they get the booze. Like it's that simple. And I think if you want a sustainable model for your life, whether you're starting from the ground up, whether you have a little bit of capital, whatever it is, you need to view people as assets.
Completely agree. Very well said and very respectfully said. And watch always the people that get in trouble are the people like this gentleman that we're talking about. You never see the quiet person that is worth a ton of money, that doesn't boast anything, doesn't show off anything. You never see them in the news getting dragged through the mud or in trouble because they do the right thing. The wealth isn't defining them. The wealth was a byproduct of whether it was family generational wealth and they were taught some great family values and respect and empathy, or they went out and earned it and they understand that it's just part of the process. And a lot of them, one of the reasons why I love living in Nashville and Franklin for a big part of my life was that someone in a pickup truck could go by is worth $1 billion. That's the guy that I emulate. That's who that's what I want to. I want people to be like, I didn't even know that guy had any money. Amazing, good for him. Rather than F that guy that has to change his muffler because he wants to show off that he's riding down Ocean Avenue in a Ferrari to make it louder as hell so he can get people to look at him. He just wants people to look at him because he's small and insignificant. But he thinks he's big because his bank account's big.
There's a lot of people that are in the business of buying things they don't need to impress people they don't like. in a race to accomplish that in the most efficient way possible. I'm so with you in that once you acquire some level of wealth, there's a responsibility for you to do something important with it. But I think that we're up against something that most people, either it's willful ignorance, they choose to ignore this, or they just don't understand it. I'll start this with Alex Hormozi. I saw a talk that he gave about a study about the 3 common traits that the most wealthy and successful people have. Those 3 traits are that they have a superiority complex. They feel like they're superior to other people. They have a massive insecurity or fear of failure. And they also have impulse control.
Yeah.
Now, this to me is like the dumb people problem. People who are intelligent often reflect and see fault in themselves and then have a deep-seated belief that they are not good enough to achieve something, right? And then they get stuck in that loop of, I'm not good enough, so I'm not going to do the thing because I don't want to fail, right?
Right.
Where somebody who is kind of not very smart, they don't have the intelligence or wherewithal to have any type of self-reflection or self-awareness. And so they don't think that they're stupid enough not to do it. So they just do it without judging themselves and without worrying about what other people judge. And it's those people, right? With that one other thing, the impulse control, it's those people that make it into that position. But when they get there, and this is the thing, for me maybe it's just my own coping mechanism, but it's one of those situations where it's forgive them for they know not what they do. These people don't even know how poor their life is and how, in spite of their wealth, what little contribution they're actually making. Further to that, somebody like, I think the person that you mentioned, that post that he made is a strategic one to manipulate people into wanting or desiring what he has. And then he acts as though he is the gatekeeper between them and achieving that thing with some specific knowledge. And I hate to break it to that guy and the rest of the people that are listening to this podcast, but you are 15 seconds away from getting the knowledge that you need. If you just pull out your phone, type something into Google, and then dive down that rabbit hole, you're going to open up things that you never knew before. And this is why I said before, the education system's obsolete. We don't need to memorize facts anymore. It's useless.
Yeah. Well, the
You
facts
can pull out your
now are AI, not even going to be real facts 10, 20 years from now. So you don't even know what's going to be legitimate or not.
Right. And isn't that so now the real lesson is in critical thinking, the ability to think and decipher and dig into something. And I hated this so much about people during the whole like COVID-19 pandemic thing. Oh, you don't have a lab coat, so you can't do research. I think that just goes to show the level of intelligence that these people have. The idea or the act of, I have a hypothesis. I think, A plus B equals C. So let's go and find out. And then I write it down somewhere, right? And then I go and I test it. And I find out that it's A plus B actually equals G. Okay, so I was wrong. Now I can do A plus B equals G over and over and over again. That's science. That's a scientific method, right? That's research. And so if you want to accomplish something or you think that there's something in your way, the real work, and this is, I think, what most people really need to hear, the eye-opener, it's not that you lack the knowledge. It's that you lack the belief in yourself to go and acquire the knowledge. And that has been grilled into you from all of the grading and testing that you faced in your general public education system, the environment that you grew up in with your parents and your family and your siblings and your friends and your communities, all these people that are just, every thought that you have is not your own. It was given to you by somebody else, and you have decided that you keep it or not based on some arbitrary set of guidelines and morals and values. And this is why some people are capable of murder, because they don't have the same morals and guidelines that you are. Much the same as people aren't capable of thinking that they're doing wrong when they acquire millions and millions of dollars from people by charging way too much money for something and making it hard for somebody to acquire that thing, like groceries.
Yeah. No,
and how funny that loop is for just anybody kind of observing. So now it's on you. Everything is your fault.
Yeah. And one of my most important, I wish I learned this earlier on, but my most important pivot was, second most important, not be jaded or bitter. That was key to continue to evolve. Mm-hmm. Secondly, to realize my organic inner circle, which can be loving and fun and tremendous in its own reason for being there, like family, friends, classmates, teammates, husbands, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever the organic inner circle is, that is not your organic entrepreneur circle. It took me a long time to figure that out. You're not going to get the support you need from that circle because we're crazy. Entrepreneurs are crazy. That's reality, and you can take offense to it or not. But we have a vision, and we want to do it. And we're going to do it, and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to get beat up, we're going to get hurt. But that inner circle that you grew up with or you surround yourself with, they are not your support system. when you make it, they're going to be your best friends because they're going to say the whole time, we knew you were going to do it. We're proud of you. But no, you need to compartmentalize that group and then go and build another group of support. So Devin, like you're saying, as far as people putting that self-doubt in you, a lot of it comes from the people you surround yourself with and them saying, you're not going to be able to do that, or how are you going to get the money to do that? All these, in my mind, silly questions, because there's millions of people that have done it prior, whatever it is, whatever they set out to do and change the world or built a business or launched a great product or a piece of IP. It can be done. It's done every minute. So that's not your support system. That's your different emotional needs support system. You need to stop sharing things with them. Only real tangible successes. You can't say, oh, this is going to happen, because they're going to be like, well, you told me last week that you were going to get blah, 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 blah. And then you start self-doubting yourself more. So you can't share momentum with that circle, because it's going to make you feel like crap, and they're going to make you feel like crap. And there's no fault to anybody. Everybody's wired differently. So you got to start building, even if it's one person, you need one solid person that maybe you find on LinkedIn and you share similar ideas. You have the same business mindset. You like the same industry. You just need one person to feed off of each other. And that becomes the first of, hopefully, my opinion, a very small, powerful inner circle, business-wise. And then personal, they're different. People have to figure out how to separate the two. It's not easy. It took me 20 years. So that's really key to progress and understanding, who do you share information with? Who do you not share information with? Who's worthy of your time? Who's not worthy of your time? And you really got to be two different people within, not being a psychopath. You just got to understand there's different people around you require different communication and different engagement to you. So there's business and there's personal. You got to separate the two. And the other thing where you were saying that they do not know what they do, forgive them, they don't know what they do. I want to believe that. I really do. And I go through that believing that. But there are definitely malice people in your journey. And people have to take a moment. And this happens to me every day. The minute I'm on a good path or something good is happening, there is almost an identical, at the same time, something bad or something to divert me or something new and shiny. When you're on a good path, you have to reflect that you're on a good path. And not all the time when something comes out of nowhere that you think is because you're on a good path, and now here's something even better and bigger and stronger, that's to set you back. That's not, in my experience, that's not real. How can the moment you're feeling good about something even bigger and better and more amazing out of nowhere comes out? That's, in my mind, in my experience, that's evil. That's pure evil, to take you off your path, to stop you where you were going in the trajectory that you were on. Because I've been caught up in that. And I told this example on another show last week. I was sitting in a cafe and there was a table in front of me, and I purposely didn't intervene because I think the guy needs to be taught a lesson, just like I need to be taught a lesson. How many times have maybe a friend or a parent or an older professional have told you guys, you don't want to do that, it's not going to be good for you. You don't understand it until you go and do it and it's not good for you. Then you understand it. So there was an older guy and maybe a guy 10 years younger than him. The older guy was being pitched this bullshit media story that I heard 10 years ago that I bought in on, and doing a film production company and building a studio. And we're going to get all these films are going to be produced. We're going to make all this money every year. All these different mega movies are going to be in. And the guy was buying it. And it wasn't anybody famous that was pitching him this. It was a guy that they were even saying, how did I get so lucky? I'm not even in the movie industry. I'm like, well, no, you're not that lucky. This is all this is bullshit. And the guy's probably going to put some money into it and he's going to lose, but that's how he's going to learn. I could have walked over and said, hey, listen, I've been in this situation. It's no good for you. The guy was still going to do it. He might have even done it more just to spite me walking over and saying something to him. So, yeah. But it's amazing that what I'm getting at is people get recycled, stories get recycled, angles get recycled. If that guy that was pitching that BS and all the energy and time, if he just went and got a normal job, my God, you do great things. Just go and work. All you're trying to do is take from people and paint this beautiful picture that it's not going to happen. Use that energy elsewhere. Go to work. Go create real value. Go do something, not take from people. So it's just I'm still weirded out by a decade later, somebody in some situation is telling the same story that I bid on a decade ago. It's weird, very weird.
But if you had mentioned something and he made him stop and take a step back and maybe not invest, you know, you might say, I saved that guy. But what if he's sitting there and for the next 5 years saying, what if? What if I had? Maybe I could have. And he sits there in regret. What's a better outcome? A short-term burn that he learns from, or 5 years of regret? So it's kind of that catch-22. Whereas going through a bad experience to me isn't always a bad outcome, and that's a really hard one to endure, because I'm not out looking to get burnt, but I feel that there's a lot of positive things that I've worked towards, so that I can have the mindset of, hey, where can I build from here? How can I be better? Where did I falter? And I love what you said, that entrepreneurs are crazy, because the term crazy, like if you Google the definition of crazy and you compare that to being called crazy, it's not always a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I think in the world of relationships, in the world of entrepreneur, whatever circle you're putting that in, the term crazy really just means that you're not going with the majority. And that's the new urban, everyone says, oh, that person's crazy. Are they crazy, or do they make you uncomfortable? Because that's what a lot of people are doing. As soon as what you're doing, what Brian's doing makes me uncomfortable, that guy's crazy. And then it justifies me separating myself from you and going down a different path. And I think if we just removed that and said what they're doing is different than what I would do, you have a lot different, outlook on what people, and I think entrepreneurs, because they come from more of a creative side, look at all the painters of history that have been labeled crazy. Amazing painter, guy was nuts. Was he? Was he, or did he just express himself differently than what most people did who tried to fit the norm?
Yeah.
Was he just outside? Was he actually institutionalized, or did he just think differently? And I think that we have to be okay with being labeled crazy, because all that means is we're not repeating the same insanity over and over again. We're trying new things and we're not scared of it. It's that simple. And I think you're a great example of that. I really props to you for, continuing to trying and not being overly concerned about being crazy.
Thanks, Mitch. Well, go ahead, Devin.
This is my last one, I promise.
It's okay.
The world is often...
It's a great show. It's much different than the usual conversation, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is why we love keeping it super organic, because we don't know where it's going, but it's always fun. The world is often changed by people crazy enough to think that they can. And I think that that's a fundamental principle of what makes an entrepreneur an entrepreneur, is somebody who's like, you know what? There's all this stuff that's happening out here in the world, but nobody's doing it like this. And if it was done like this, wouldn't that change things? And so you go in and then you become disruptive and you change. And some ideas are more disruptive than others, right? TikTok, or used to be Musical.ly, TikTok was not much different than YouTube. Here's what happened. It went from this to this.
And I think it was ByteDance before that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Wildly different, right?
Yeah.
But it put the focus back on the right people. And I think that was necessary. So as we go through all of this stuff, I think the challenges that we face as entrepreneurs are only as big as, what we're capable of. There's always something a little bit bigger than where we're at. And that constant progression or striving for improvement is what makes us, I think, vital in terms of the evolution of our culture, society, and collectively as humanity. That being said, Brian, you've been incredibly generous with your time, and we're kind of coming up to the end of the hour here. I want to leave people with something, and as always with this show, it's leave people better than when we found them. Somebody that's kind of like taking this in and listening, and who's kind of on that journey or ready to take something like this on. What's one single piece of advice that you would give them to help them see how important what they're doing right now is, and B, what what they can do to kind of stay focused or stay in that pursuit of improving humanity?
Yeah, I think there's a very calm and strategic way people can go after their dreams. Now, I don't think you necessarily have to go all in and risk everything. Depending upon your life, if you're married, you have kids, you have to think through. It's not just you at risk when you're making those decisions, or whose lives you might be impacting. So I think, you got to surround yourself with really good people. So if you have an idea and you're an entrepreneur, and what I love doing now is my holding companies there's 108 companies now in my holdings. There's over 200 joint ventures operating over 25 different industries. It's an arsenal of IP, technologies, products, solutions, and services. It's a world that I've created that I love. I love all the things that I do and all the people I get to work with. Startups and up to Fortune 500 companies now partner with me to bring me into their company and help them do what you're saying, Devin. Help them succeed, give them the tools and resources and support they need as an entrepreneur to make it. I love doing this because this is the support that I needed that I didn't have when I was building what I was building. So for me, it's very rewarding. It's very therapeutic to make sense of the grief and nonsense and stress that I've been through, that I've put myself through. Now I can help people navigate some of the waters. For someone like me, the caveat is also I need those leaders to get beat up a little bit. I need them to get bruised and experienced, or I'm not doing them a service to be a seasoned CEO to lead their vision and their company forward. But it's nice that I'm there, that it doesn't go too far. It's nice that I'm there to help them open up doors, fix problems, create opportunities. I love doing that. Win, win, win. That's my whole MO is what can we do where we all benefit and win? So if you're going in to be an entrepreneur, or you're failing a little bit, or you're feeling defeated, or you're lost, you got to go and find somebody. And I think LinkedIn is a perfect example. Look for someone that you feel a connection to, you like what they're posting about, you sense some energy from them, and just guns on the table, reach out to them and build a relationship. Too many people just go right out and they just ask and demand and want, send novels. No, hey, how are you? I really love what you're doing. My name's so-and-so and I'm building this. Simple. Then hopefully they respond, or hit them again, say, hey, I really loved your post today. Great job. Keep it up. You got to nurture a relationship. Comment on their post. If you time it right, and one of the things I love what I do, being like utilizing LinkedIn, is that if someone posts something that I may not have a relationship with or working with them, I know they just posted it because it's then I comment, then I got them. I'm in their face. We have a connection. I know they're actually there and behind their computer or their phone. And then we start building a thread and conversation. I read what they wrote. I said, hey, that's really great. This is what I think. I think you're on the right track. Or have you thought about this? And now you start building conversation. You start forming a bond, and maybe you create something. You create some momentum. So the fun thing about the world that we live in, and that you can find anybody anywhere, you can connect with anybody anywhere. An entrepreneur may be sitting on something that they may not know has real value, but the right connection, the right new person that comes into your life that believes in you, that can take you from zero to hero, it's out there. It's there. It's up to you to funnel it, nurture it, and find it, and continue to perfect your business. I think you should always keep earnings and profitability in your mind. You need to go out into the market with something that makes money, not that, oh, it'll make money 10 years from now. Oh, I just need 1 million customers and Amazon will buy me. You cannot have that mindset. You need to, if you're going to be in business, what does your model look like? What are you putting into the market? Are you pricing it correctly? Are you paying the best possible cost, whether it's manufacturing, tech development, making a piece of music, whatever it is? Are you pricing it right and developing it at the best possible price with the best possible vendors and partners? And are you putting it into the market at the right price where you can actually create a business? Once you have that perfected, and you only need one customer to perfect it, then you go and get another customer. Then you get 4, then you get 8, then you get 16, then you get 32. And now all of a sudden you're in business, but you can do it in a very safe, I wouldn't say always relaxing, but you can do it in a manner where you can keep your other job and maneuver and manage and get it right. And then when the moment's right to go all in, you go all in, but you can take a lot of the risk out of it right now, utilizing other opportunities or other jobs you may be at, or a big corporation you may be working at that probably going to fire you in a couple of years anyway because they're converting everything to AI. So in the meantime, There's a great moment to reinvent yourself. Utilize wherever you are in life to start doing that, and be realistic. Don't go and shoot for crazy things that are not obtainable. Have short, small, attainable goals, because then you build from that. And you feel good, you feel self-accomplished, you feel like you did it. And then you go and get the next goal, and then you get the next goal. And then before you know it, you obtain the wild goal that you wanted prior, but you can't go from here to here. It doesn't work that way. You got to work your way up to that and earn it and understand it and respect that entire process. That was a long answer, but hopefully there's some value in that little nugget.
No, I think it was beautiful. And just to add to that in closing, that long-term goal, and this is a lesson that I've had to learn and my journey with Devin as well. If you're too specific on that long-term goal, you'll never reach it. I shouldn't say you'll never reach it, but you'll miss out on a lot of opportunities. Whereas if you have more of an overarching goal, you can take advantage of all those little things that come along, because it might turn. Your trajectory might change a little bit and you still reach that overarching goal. And then you can look back and be like, wow. But if you did that and your goal was too specific, well, then all of a sudden it's a really hard thing to do and you miss a lot of opportunities along the way. So I think that goal needs to not just be realistic, but it has to be a little bit more vague than something that's like, oh, I want my company to be $1 billion with this many and have this, perfect little scenario, because then I won't hit a connection properly with somebody that could take me even further, but just in a different direction. And I think just being open to opportunity and seeing those as steps rather than just focusing too much on that, really fine, detailed long-term goal. That's something I've learned along the way, and it's opened up a ton of doors for us.
Good. I like that.
Brian, what you shared in the last 5 minutes of this podcast is probably some of the most actionable, usable advice. And I just want to put a little bit of emphasis on that first part about early in our dialogue, we touched on the idea of transactional relationships versus genuine relationships. And what you offered as the strategy to form those genuine relationships, I think, is priceless. That will make somebody who listens to this $1 million easily. In fact, some of what you said resonated so deeply with me that I need to go back and change my message sequence, because some of it was like, actually, that would make more sense to do that. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And to me, it sounds a lot like hard work, opportunity. And you're the hard work, the opportunity's out there floating around in the ether. And your hard work is bringing you closer to it. And at some point in your life, there's going to be this magic moment of luck, of really good luck, where that hard work and that opportunity connects and pays off. And anybody listening to this that's kind of on that path, just keep that in the back of your mind as you're going through everything. This has been wonderful, Brian. I'm very grateful for everything you've offered in terms of your insights and stories. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, maybe to work with you or to kind of pick your brain, is that a possibility? And if so, how do they do it?
Always. I'm accessible to a fault. So LinkedIn and Twitter on social media is all I use. So Brian J. Esposito. The corporate site's EIE.rocks, so EIE.ROCKS, and that's Esposito Intellectual Enterprises. And I always get back to everybody. So don't think it's a place of weakness to be vulnerable and ask for help. It's actually, I believe, a place of strength. And honored to be on your show, Devin and Mitch. Thank you so much for having me. And anybody listening, please, if it's not me, again, put your gun on the table, reach out to somebody, ask for help, and you'd be amazed the amount of wonderful people out there that are willing to do whatever they can to help you succeed.
Thanks, Brian. That's it for this episode. We will see you in the next one.